Hi everyone, Roy here. Up early as it's Bloomsday, day when James Joyce and his most famous novel Ulysses are celebrated. On the day Ulysses takes place, June the 16th. So, welcome to my channel. Welcome back if you've been before. Normally, it's me, sometimes with my wife Jennie, talking about bookish things. But today, something different. So, past couple of years I've been involved with fellow booktubers in reading events to do with James Joyce, which has been great. So some of us have got together to do something for Bloomsday, a read aloud, where we're taking passages we like and reading them to you. So let's hand over to Alan, Debs, Greg, Ian, Jennie, Joseph, Kat, Mick, Pat, Roz, Roy and Thomas. Hope you enjoy it.
Hello lovely people, happy Bloomsday. I'm Debs from the channel Raina Read Stuff, and I am going to read to you an excerpt from Evelyn in Dubliners. And we're going to start in the middle. She had consented to go away, to leave her home. Was that wise? She tried to weigh each side of the question. In her home, anyway, she had shelter and food. She had those whom she had known all her life about her. Of course she had to work hard, both in the house and at business. What would they say of her in the stores when they found out that she had run away with a fellow? Say she was a fool, perhaps, and her place would be filled by advertisement. Miss Gavin would be glad. She had always an edge to her, especially when there were people listening. Miss Hill, don't you see those ladies are waiting? Look lively, Miss Hill, please. She would not cry many tears at leaving the stores. But in her new home, in a distant unknown country, it wouldn't be like that. Then she would be married. She, Evelyn. People would treat her with respect then. She would not be treated as her mother had been. Even now, though she was over 19, she sometimes felt herself in danger of her father's violence. She knew it was that had given her the palpitations. When they were growing up, he had never gone for her, like he used to go for Harry and Ernest, because she was a girl. But latterly he had begun to threaten her and say he would do to her only for her dead mother's sake. And now she had nobody to protect her. Ernest was dead, and Harry, who was in the church decorating business, was nearly always down somewhere in the country. Besides, the inevitable squabble for money on a Saturday had begun to weary her unspeakably. She always gave her entire wages, 7 shillings, and Harry always sent up what he could. But the trouble was to get money from her father. He said she used to squander the money, that she had no head, that he wasn't going to give her his hard-earned money to throw about on the streets, and much more, for he was usually fairly bad on a Saturday night. In the end, he would give her money and ask if she had any intention of buying Sunday dinner. Then she had to rush out as quickly as she could and do her marketing, holding her black leather purse tightly in her hand as she elbowed her way through the crowds and returning home late under a load of provisions. She had hard work to keep the house together and to see that the 2 young children who had been left to her charge went to school regularly and had their meals regularly. It was hard work, a hard life, but now that she was about to leave, she did not find it an wholly undesirable life. Happy Bloomsday.
An observation of Bloomsday, I'd like to read an excerpt from the final short story in James Joyce's collection, Dubliners. This passage comes from The Dead. She was fast asleep. Gabriel, leaning on his elbow, looked for a few moments unresentfully on her tangled hair and half-open mouth, listening to her deep-drawn breath. So she had had that romance in her life. A man had died for her sake. It hardly pained him now to think how poor a part he, her husband, had played in her life. He watched her while she slept, as though he and she had never lived together as man and wife. His curious eyes rested long upon her face and on her hair, and as he thought of what she must have been then, in that time of her first girlish beauty, a strange, friendly pity for her entered his soul. He did not like to say, even to himself, that her face was no longer beautiful, but he knew that it was no longer the face for which Michael Fury had braved death. Perhaps she had not told him all the story. His eyes moved to the chair, over which she had thrown some of her clothes. A petticoat string dangled to the floor. One boot stood upright, its limp upper fallen down. The fellow of it lay upon its side. He wondered at his riot of emotions of an hour before. From what had it proceeded? From his aunt's supper? From his own foolish speech? From the wine and dancing, the merrymaking when saying good night in the hall, the pleasure of the walk along the river in the snow? Poor Aunt Julia, she too would soon be a shade, with the shade of Patrick Morkan and his horse. He had caught that haggard look upon her face for a moment when she was singing, arrayed for the bridal. Soon, perhaps, he would be sitting in that same drawing room, dressed in black, his silk hat on his knees. The blinds would be drawn down, and Aunt Kate would be sitting beside him, crying and blowing her nose and telling him how Julia had died. He would cast about in his mind for some words that might console her, and would find only lame and useless ones. Yes, that would happen very soon. The air of the room chilled his shoulders. He stretched himself cautiously along under the sheets and lay down beside his wife. One by one they were all becoming shades. Better pass boldly into that other world in the full glory of some passion than fade and wither dismally with age. He thought of how she who lay beside him had locked in her heart for so many years that image of her lover's eyes when he had told her that he did not wish to live. Generous tears filled Gabriel's eyes. He had never felt like that himself towards any woman, but he knew that such a feeling must be love. The tears gathered more thickly in his eyes, and in the partial darkness he imagined he saw the form of a young man standing under a dripping tree. Other forms were near. His soul had approached that region where dwell the vast hosts of the dead. He was conscious of, but could not apprehend, their wayward and flickering existence. His own identity was fading out into a gray, impalpable world. The solid world itself, which these dead had one time reared and lived in, was dissolving and dwindling. A few light taps upon the pane made him turn to the window. It had begun to snow again. He watched sleepily the flakes, silver and dark, falling obliquely against the lamplight. The time had come for him to set out on his journey westward. Yes, the newspapers were right. Snow was general all over Ireland. It was falling on every part of the dark central plain, on the treeless hills, falling softly upon the bog of Allen and farther westward, falling softly into the dark, mutinous Shannon waves. It was falling, too, upon every part of the lonely churchyard on the hill where Michael Fury lay buried. It lay thickly drifted on the crooked crosses and headstones, on the spears of the little gate, on the barren thorns. His soul swooned slowly as he heard the snow falling faintly through the universe and faintly falling, like the descent of their last end upon all the living and the dead.
Hello, I'm Mick from the embryonic booktube channel Mick Has Read a Book. I'm part of a group of people reading extracts of Joyce that have been corralled together by Roy from Roy Reads Anything. We're all reading extracts from James Joyce books, and I'm going to read the first page or so of this book, A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. So, without delay, let's dive in. Once upon a time, and a very good time it was, there was a moo cow coming down along the road. And this moo cow that was coming down along the road met a nice little boy named Baby Tuckoo. His father told him that story. His father looked at him through a glass. He had a hairy face. He was Baby Tuckoo. The moo cow came down the road where Betty Byrne lived. She sold lemon platt. Oh, the wild rose blossoms on the little green place. He sang that song. That was his song. Oh, the green wother bithoth. When you wet the bed, first it is warm, then it gets cold. His mother put on the oil sheet. That had a queer smell. His mother was nicer than his father. She played the piano, the sailor's hornpipe, for him to dance. He danced. Tra-la-la-la-la, tra-la-la, tra-la-la-dee, tra-la-la-la-la, tra-la-la-la-la. Uncle Charles and Dante clapped. They were older than his father and mother, but Uncle Charles was older than Dante. Dante had two brushes in her press. The brush with the maroon velvet back was for Michael Davitt, and the brush with the green velvet back was for Parnell. Dante gave him a cachu every time he bought her a piece of tissue paper. The Vancers lived in number 7. They had a different father and mother. They were Eileen's father and mother. When they were grown up, he was going to marry Eileen. He hid under the table. His mother said, "Oh, Stephen will apologise." Dante said, "Oh, if not, the eagles will come and pull out his eyes. Pull out his eyes, apologise, apologise. Pull out his eyes, apologise. Pull out his eyes, pull out his eyes, apologise." I hope you enjoyed that. I did. I'll now hand you over to another contributor. Cheers for now.
Do you want to hear something scary? I'm Ros of Skelly About the Books, and my contribution to this Bloomsday reading compilation is a passage from James Joyce's Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man, published in 1916, his semi-autobiographical novel about growing up as a Catholic boy in turn-of-the-century Ireland. Picture the scene. Our hero, Stephen Dedalus, is sitting in chapel. The preacher's voice sank. He paused, joined his palms for an instant, parted them. Then he resumed. "Now, let us try for a moment to realise, as far as we can, the nature of that abode of the damned, which the justice of an offended God has called into existence for the eternal punishment of sinners. Hell is a strait and dark
and foul-smelling prison, an abode of demons and lost souls, filled with fire and smoke. The straitness of this prison house is expressly designed by God to punish those who refuse to be bound by his laws. In earthly prisons, the poor captive has at least some liberty of movement, were it only within the four walls of his cells or in the gloomy yard of his prison. Not so in hell. There, by reason of the great number of the damned, the prisoners are heaped together in their awful prison, the walls of which are said to be 4,000 miles thick, and the damned are so utterly bound and helpless that, as a blessed saint, Saint Anselm, writes in his Book of Similitudes, they are not even able to remove from the eye a worm that gnaws it. They lie in exterior darkness, for remember, the fire of hell gives forth no light. As at the command of God the fire of the Babylonian furnace lost its heat but not its light, so at the command of God the fire of hell, while retaining the intensity of its heat, burns eternally in darkness. It is a never-ending storm of darkness, dark flames and dark smoke of burning brimstone, amid which the bodies are heaped one upon another without even a glimpse of air. Of all the plagues with which the land of the Pharaohs was smitten, one plague alone, that of darkness, was called horrible. What name, then, shall we give to the darkness of hell, which is to last not for 3 days alone, but for all eternity? The horror of this strait and dark prison is increased by its awful stench. All the filth of the world, all the offal and scum of the world, we are told, shall run there as to a vast reeking sewer when the horrible conflagration of the last day has purged the world. The brimstone, too, which burns there in such prodigious quantity, fills all hell with its intolerable stench, and the bodies of the damned themselves exhale such a pestilential odour that, as St. Bonaventure says, one of them alone would suffice to infect the whole world. The very air of this world, that pure element, becomes foul and unbreathable when it has been long enclosed. Consider, then, what must be the foulness of the air of hell. Imagine some foul and putrid corpse that has lain rotting and decomposing in the grave, a jelly-like mass of liquid corruption. Imagine such a corpse a prey to flames, devoured by the fire of burning brimstone and giving off dense, choking fumes of nauseous, loathsome decomposition. And then imagine this sickening stench multiplied 1,000,000-fold and 1,000,000-fold again. From the millions upon millions of fetid carcasses massed together in the reeking darkness, a huge and rotting human fungus. Imagine all this, and you will have some idea of the horror of the stench of hell. Well, that's the kind of thing that Joyce was brought up listening to. No wonder he ended up writing Finnegans Wake.
Hi, I'm Joe O'Malley, sitting in for Too Tight LeChuck, who is on sabbatical somewhere off up there in the North Sea, and happy Bloomsday. Today I'm going to be reading from James Joyce's Ulysses for Bloomsday. I'm going to be reading the 3rd chapter, which is called Proteus, after the great shapeshifter Proteus. And in this chapter, most of the shapeshifting that goes on is in Stephen Dedalus' thoughts, and sometimes we'll hear his thoughts, sometimes we'll hear maybe external things that are happening outside, but in the end it's a mishmash of Stephen's thoughts and what's happening on the Sandymount Strand where he is. So for those of you who may be unfamiliar with Ulysses, there are quite a lot of very loose associations with Joyce's Ulysses to Homer's Odyssey. Ulysses is the Latin name for Odysseus, which is the Greek name, and Homer's Odyssey obviously is about Odysseus. So very roughly, Stephen Dedalus is a death-obsessed young poet, and he's death-obsessed because his mother has just died. He's been called back from France to watch his mother die. And he is roughly equivalent to Odysseus' son, Telemachus. And Stephen's biological father, he doesn't really have that much of a relationship with, because he's a bit of a gadabout town and sort of shiftless all the way around. Leopold Bloom is loosely associated with Odysseus, the father figure, and throughout the novel they slowly come closer and closer together until they finally meet and come together at the end. So the Odyssey starts with Telemachus going around asking, what has happened to my father? Because he's been gone for 10 years fighting in the Trojan War, and all the people that Odysseus knows tell about what Odysseus has been up to, and through those stories Odysseus comes to life on the page. And in Ulysses, the first 3 chapters are all about Stephen Dedalus, the Telemachus-like figure, and there's Stephen Dedalus, the death-obsessed poet, going about his day, getting up, going to teach, and then going for a walk on Sandy Mount Strand, which is on the Irish Sea, and watching as they pull out the dead body of a man who was drowned 9 days earlier. And you'll see, but you'll hear all these different voices, but at the end of it you'll see that, or you'll hear that Stephen sees a ship on the ocean, and that's roughly corresponding to the idea of Odysseus coming into view. And fittingly enough, the very next chapter is Leopold Bloom on the stage for the first time. So, from Ulysses chapter 3, the end of the Proteus chapter. He lay back at full stretch over the sharp rocks, cramming the scribbled note and pencil into a pocket, his hat tilted down on his eyes. That is Kevin Egan's movement I made, nodding for his nap, Sabbath sleep. Et vidit Deus, et errant valde bono. Hello, bonjour, welcome as the flowers in May. Under its leaf he watched through peacock-twittering lashes the southing sun. I am caught in this burning scene, Pan's hour, the faunal noon, among gum-heavy serpent plants, milk-oozing fruits, where on the tawny waters leaves lie wide. Pain is far, and no more turn aside and brood. His gaze brooded on his broad-toes boots, a buck's cast-offs, Nebuchadnezzar. He counted the creases of rough leather, wherein another's foot had nested warm, the foot that beat the ground at tripudium, foot I dislove. But you were delighted when Esther Oswald's shoe went on you, girl I knew in Paris. Tiens, quel petit pied! Staunch friend, a brother soul, Wild's love that dare not speak its name. His arm, Cranley's arm. He now will leave me, and the blame? As I am, all or not at all. In long lassos from the Cock Lake, the water flowed full, covering green goldenly lagoons of sand, rising, flowing. My ash plant will float away. I shall wait. No, they will pass on, passing, chafing against the low rocks, swirling, passing. Better get this job over quick. Listen, a 4-worded wave speech. Si-su, rsh, rsh, oos. Vehement breath of waters amid sea snakes, rearing horses, rocks. In cups of rocks it slops. Flop, slop, slap. Bounded in barrows. And spent, its speech ceases. It flows purling, widely flowing, floating foam pool, flower unfurling. Under the upswelling tide, he saw the writhing weeds lift languidly and sway reluctant arms, hising up their petticoats, in whispering water, swaying and upturning coy silver fronds. Day by day, night by night, lifted, flooded, and let fall. Lord, they are weary, and, whispered to, they sigh. St. Ambrose heard it, the sigh of leaves and waves, waiting, awaiting the fullness of their times. Diebus ec noctibus inurius patiens ingenessit. To no end gathered, vainly then released, forth flowing, wending back, loom of the moon. Weary, too, in sight of lovers, lascivious men, a naked woman shining in her courts, she draws a toil of waters. 5 fathoms out there, full fathom 5 thy father lies. At 1, he said, found drowned, high water at Dublin bar. Driving before it a loose drift of rubble, fan shoals of fishes, silly shells, a corpse rising salt white from the undertow, bobbing, a pace, a porpoise, landward. There he is, hook it quick, pull, sunk though he be beneath the watery floor. We have him, easy now. Bag of corpse gas, sopping in foul brine, a quiver of minnows, fat of a spongy titbit, flashed through the slits of his buttoned trouser leg. God becomes man, becomes fish, becomes barnacle goose, becomes featherbed mountain. Dead breaths, I, living, breathe. Tread dead dust, devour a Uranus awful from all dead. Hauled stark over the gunwale, he breathes upward the stench of his green grave, his leprous nosehole snoring to the sun. A sea change this, brown eyes, salt blue. Sea death, mildest of all deaths known to man. Old Father Ocean. Prix de Paris. Beware of imitations. Just you give it a fair trial. We enjoyed ourselves immensely. Come, I thirst. Clouding over. No black clouds anywhere, are there? Thunderstorm. All bright he falls, proud lightning of the intellect. Lucifer dico, kinesit ocasum. No, my cockle hat and staff and himsy sandals shoon. Where? To evening lands. Evening will find itself. He took the hilt of his ash plant, lunging with it softly, dallying still. Yes, evening will find itself in me, without me. All days make their end. By the way, next, when it is Tuesday, will be the longest day. Of all the glad new year, mother, the rum-tum-tiddly-tum, Lon Tennyson, gentleman poet, Gia, for the old hag with the yellow teeth, and Monsieur Dumont, gentleman journalist, Gia. My teeth are very bad. Why, I wonder. Feel. That one is going too. Shells. Ought I go to a dentist, I wonder, with that money? That one. This. Toothless Kinch, the Superman. Why is that, I wonder? Or does it mean something, perhaps? My handkerchief. He threw it. I remember. Did I not take it up? His hand groped vainly in his pockets. No, I didn't. Better buy one. He laid the dry snot, picked from his nostril, on a ledge of rock, carefully. For the rest, let look who will. Behind, perhaps there is someone. He turned his face over a shoulder, rear regardant. Moving through the air, high spars of a three-master, her sails brailed up on the cross trees, homing, upstream, silently moving, a silent ship. Happy Bloomsday.
Ulysses by James Joyce. It is often called the greatest novel of the English language. I'm not sure that is entirely correct, but I can understand why some people want to say it is. I read this 2 times in my life. The first time strictly as an audiobook, sometime in the 90s, and then last year in 2024, I read it with the Ulysses 6, a group reading this novel. And it is one of the best reading experiences of my life because this is the kind of book that you want to read with friends. And it is a book that every reader should attempt sometime in their life. If you can't do it with friends, try it by yourself. And try it with an audiobook in your ear with your eyes on the text. I think that is the best way to read this book. I am going to read the beginning of chapter 4. This is an introduction to the character of Leopold Bloom. My apologies to the Irish, because I cannot do Joyce justice, and I cannot do the Irish voice justice. And I apologize and admire the professional audiobook narrators who can do the Irish justice and can do Joyce justice. But please, just forgive me for going along and reading this part of the book. Chapter 4. Mr. Leopold Bloom ate with relish the inner organs of beasts and fowls. He liked thick giblet soup, nutty gizzards, a stuffed roast heart, liver slices fried with crust crumbs, fried hen cod's roes. Most of all, he liked grilled mutton kidneys, which gave to his palate a fine tang of faintly-scented urine. Kidneys were in his mind as he moved about the kitchen softly, writing her breakfast things on a humpy tray. Gelid light and air were in the kitchen, but out of doors gentle summer morning everywhere made him feel a bit peckish. The coals were reddening. Another slice of bread and butter. 3, 4, right. She didn't like her plate full. Right. He turned from the tray, lifted the kettle off the hob, and set it sideways on the fire. It sat there, dull and squat, its spout stuck out. Cup of tea soon. Good. Mouth dry. The cat walked in stiffly around the leg of a table with tail on high. Meow. Oh, there you are, Mr. Bloom said, turning from the fire. The cat mewed in answer and stalked again stiffly round the leg of the table, mewing. Just how she stalks over my writing table. Purr. Scratch my head. Purr. Mr. Bloom watched curiously, kindly the lithe black form. Clean to see, the gloss of her sleek hide, the white button under her butt of her tail, the green flashing eyes. He bent down to her, his hands on his knees. Milk for pussins? He said. Meow, the cat cried. They call them stupid. They understand what we say better than we understand them. She understands all she wants to. Vindictive, too. Cruel. Her nature. Curious mice never squeal. Seem to like it. Wonder what I look like to her. Height of a tower? No. She can jump me. Afraid of the chickens, she is? He said mockingly. Afraid of the cooks? I never saw a stupid person as the pussins. Meow, the cat said loudly. She blinked up out of her avid shame-closing eyes, mewing plaintively and long, showing him her milk-white teeth. He watched the dark eye-slits narrowing with greed till her eyes were green stones. Then he went to the dresser, took the jug Hanlon's milkman had just filled for him, poured warm bubbled milk on a saucer, and set it slowly on the floor. Grrr, she cried, running to lap. He watched the bristles shining warily in the weak light as she tipped 3 times and licked lightly. Wonder it is true if you clip them they can't mouse after. Why? The shine in the dark, perhaps, the tips, or kind of feelers in the dark, perhaps. He listened to her licking lap. Ham and eggs? No, no good eggs with this drought. Want pure fresh water? Thursday. Not a good day either for mutton kidney at Buckley's, fried with butter, a shake of pepper. Better a pork kidney at Dowsing's. While the kettle was boiling, she lapped slower than licking the saucer clean. Why are their tongues so rough? To lap better all the porous holes. Nothing she can eat? He glanced around him. No. On quietly creaking boots, he went upstairs to the hall, paused by the bedroom door. She might like something tasty. Thin bread and butter. She likes them in the morning. Perhaps, once in a while. He said softly in the bare hall, I'm going round the corner. Be back in a minute. And when he had heard his voice say it, he added, Don't you want anything for breakfast? A sleepy, soft grunt answered, No, she didn't want anything. He had heard then a warm, heavy sigh, softer, as she turned over the loose brass quaits of the bedstead jingled. Must get those settled really. Pity. All the way from Gibraltar. Forgotten a little Spanish she knew. Wonder what her father gave it for. Old style. Ah, yes, of course. Bought it at the governor's auction. Got a short knock, hard as nails at a bargain. Old Tweedy. Yes, sir, at Plevna that was. I rose from the ranks, sir, and I'm proud of it. Still he had brains enough to make the corner in stamps. Now that was far-seeing. And that is a brief introduction to Harold Bloom. You get the fact that he likes to eat. And he got introduced to Molly just a little bit as she's waking up from her sleep. You will be introduced to Molly much later in the book. Still, I think this is a good book for people to attempt to read sometime in their life.
A few years ago, I went on holiday to Dublin with my wife. One of the many highlights of a wonderful holiday was a visit to Sweeney's Chemist in Lincoln Place. They do reading evenings where you get to read through chapters of Joyce's books with whoever else turns up on the evening. On the evening I read, there were around 10 people there, and I got to read the page that has Stephen urinating on the beach in the Proteus chapter. In honour of that occasion, I am going to read from chapter 5, Lotus Eaters, where Bloom visits Sweeney's to buy some cream for his wife Molly. He waited by the counter, inhaling slowly the keen reek of drugs, the dusty, dry smell of sponges and loofahs. Lot of time taken up telling your aches and pains. Sweet almond oil and tincture of benzoin, Mr. Bloom said. And then orange flower water. It certainly did make her skin so delicate, white like wax. And white wax also, he said. Brings out the darkness of her eyes, looking at me. The sheet up to her eyes, Spanish, smelling herself when I was fixing the links in my cuffs. Those homely recipes are often the best. Strawberries for the teeth, nettles and rainwater. Oatmeal, they say, steeped in buttermilk. Skin food. One of the old Queen's sons, Duke of Albany was it? Had only one skin. Leopold, yes. 3 we have. Warts, bunions and pimples to make it worse. But you want a perfume too? What perfume does you... Peur d'Espagne. That orange flower water is so fresh. Nice smell these soaps have. Pure, curd soap. Time to get a bath round the corner. Hammam, Turkish. Massage. Dirt get rolled up in your navel. Nicer if a girl did it. Also, I think yes, I do it in the bath. Curious longing, water to water. Combine business with pleasure. Pity, no time for massage. Feel fresh then, all day. Funeral, be rather glum. Yes, sir, the chemist said. That was 2 and 9. Have you brought a bottle? No, Mr. Bloom said. Make it up, please. I'll call in later in the day, and I'll take one of these soaps. How much are they? 4p, sir. Mr. Bloom raised a cake to his nostrils. Sweet, lemony wax. I'll take this one, he said. That makes 3 and a penny. Yes, sir, the chemist said. You can pay all together, sir, when you come back. Good, Mr. Bloom said. He strolled out of the shop. The newspaper batten under his armpit, the cool, wrapped soap in his left hand.
Hello, Alan here. I'll be reading from episode 8, Lestrygonians, from the Vintage Random House edition. It's on page 140 of the Gabbler edition, if you have that. And it's when Bloom makes his first entrance into Davy Burns' Moral Pub. And I'll be showing the menu throughout up here with the old prices from 1996. So page 170 in the Random House edition. I'm hungry. He entered Davy Burns' Moral Pub. He doesn't chat, stands a drink now and then, but in leap year, once in 4, cashed a check for me once. What will I take now? He drew his watch. Let me see now. Shandygaff? Hello, Bloom. Nosy Flynn said from his nook. Hello, Flynn. How's things? Tip-top. Let me see. I'll take a glass of Burgundy and let me see. Sardines on the shelves. Almost tasted them by looking. Sandwich? Cheese and his descendants, mustard and bread there. Potted meats? What is home without Plumtree's potted meat? Incomplete. What a stupid ad. Under the obituary notices, they stuck it. All up a Plumtree. Digham's potted meat. Cannibals with lemon and rice. White missionary too, salty. Like pickled pork. Except the chief consumes the parts of honor. Ought to be tough from exercise. His wife's in a row to watch the effect. There was a right old ninja who ate or something, the something of a Reverend Mr. McTrigger with it in a abode of bliss. Lord knows what concoction. Crawls, moldy tripes, windpipes, faked and minced up. Puzzle find the meat. Kosher. No meat and milk together. Hygiene. That was what they call it. Yom Kippur, fast spring cleaning of inside. Peace and war depend on some fellow's digestion. Religions. Christmas turkeys and geese. Slaughter all innocents. Eat, drink, and be merry. The casual wards full laughter. Heads bandaged. Cheese digests all by itself. Mighty cheese. Have you a cheese sandwich? Yes, sir. Like a few olives, too, if they had them. Italian I prefer. Good glass of Burgundy. Take away that lubricant. A nice salad, cool as a cucumber. Tom Kernan can dress. Puts gusto into it. Pure olive oil. Millie served me that cutlet with a sprig of parsley. Take 1 Spanish onion. God made food. The devil the cooks. Deviled crab. Wife well? Quite well, thanks. A cheese sandwich, then. Gorgonzola, have you? Yes, sir. Nosy Flynn sipped his grog. Doing any singing these times? Look at his mouth. Could whistle in his own ear. Flap ears to match. Music. Knows as much about it as my coachman. Still better tell him. Does no harm. Free ad. She's engaged for a big tour end of this month. You may have heard, perhaps. No, well, what's the style? Who's getting it up? The curate served. How much is that? 7D, sir. Thank you, sir. Mr. Bloom cut a sandwich into slender strips. Mr. McTrigger, easier than the dreamy, creamy stuff. His 500 wives had the time of their lives. Mustard, sir? Thank you. He studied under each lifted strip yellow blobs. Their lives, I have it. It grew bigger and bigger and bigger. Getting it up, he said? Well, it's like a company idea, you see. Part shares and part profits. Ah, now I remember. Nosy Flynn putting his hand in his pocket to scratch his groin. Who is it was telling me? Isn't Blazes Bolin mixed up in it? A warm shock of air heat of mustard haunched on Mr. Bloom's heart. He raised his eyes and met the square of a bulbous clock. 2. Pub clock 5 minutes fast. Time going on. Hands moving. 2. Not yet. His midriff yearned, then upward, sank within him, yearned more longingly. Wine. He sipped the cordial juice and, bidding his throat strongly to speed it, set his wine glass directly down. Yes, he said, he's the organizer in point of fact. No fear, no brains. Nosy Flynn sniffled and scratched. Flea having a good square meal. He had a good slice of luck, Jack Mooney was telling me, over that boxing match Myler Koff won. Again, the soldier in the Portobello barracks. By God, he had a little kipper down in the country Carlo, he was telling me. Hope that dewdrop doesn't come down into his glass. Nope. Sniffed it up. A month ago. Man, before it came off. Sucking duck eggs, by God, till further orders. Keep him off the booze, see? Oh, by God, Blazes is a hairy chap. Davy Byrne came forward from his hind bar in tuck-stitch shirt sleeves, cleaning his lips with 2 swipes of his napkin, herring blush, whose eyes upon each feature plays with such and such replete, too much fat on the parsnips. And he's himself and pepper on him, Nosy Flynn said. Can you give him a good one for the gold cup? I'm off that, Mr. Flynn said. Davy Byrne answered, I never put anything on a horse. You're right there, Nosy Flynn said. Mr. Bloom ate his strips of sandwich, fresh, clean bread with relish of disgust, pungent mustard, and feety flavor of green cheese. Sips of his wine soothed his palate. Not Longwood, that. Tastes fuller this weather with the chill off. Nice quiet bar. Nice piece of wood on that counter. Nicely planed. Like the way it curves there. I wouldn't do anything at all in that time, Davy Byrne said. It ruined many a man the same horses. Vintner sweepstakes. License for the sale of beer, wine, and spirits for consumption on the premises. Heads I win, tails you lose. True for you, Nosy Flynn said. Unless you're in the know, there's no straight sport now. Lenehan gets some good ones. He's getting Spectre today. Zinfandel's the favorite. Lord Howard de Walders won at Epsom. Monty Cannon is riding him. I could have gone 7-1 against St. Amant a fortnight before. That's so, Bert, Davy Burns said. He went towards the window and, taking up the petty cash book, scanned its pages. I could, faith, Nosy, Flynn said, sniffling. That was a rare bit of horse flesh. St. Fergrim was her sire. She won in a thunderstorm. Rothschild's filly, with wadding in her ears, blue jacket and yellow cap. Bad luck for Big Ben Dullard and his John O'Gaunt. He put me off it, eh? He drank resignedly from his tumbler, running his fingers down the flutes. Ah, he said, sighing. Mr. Bloom, champion standing, looked upon his sigh. Nosy numbskull, will I tell him the horse, Lenehan? He knows already. Better let him forget. Go and lose more. Fool in his money. Dewdrop coming down again. Cold nose. He'd have kissing a woman. Still, they might like. Prickly beards they like. Dogs' cold noses. Old Mrs. Royden, with the rumbling stomach's Skye Terrier in the City Arms Hotel, Molly fondling him in her lap. Oh, the big doggy, bow wow wowsy. Wine soaked in soft and rolled pith of bread, mustard, a moment, mockish cheese. Nice wine it is. Tasted better because I'm not thirsty. Bath, of course, does that. Just a bite or two. Then about 6 o'clock I can. 6, time will be gone. Then she...
I'm reading a passage from the penultimate chapter of Ulysses, often called Ithaca, which I really like for the way it takes realism to sort of comedy extremes, but also pivots into poetry as well. What did Bloom see on the range? On the right, smaller hob, a blue enamelled saucepan. On the left, larger hob, a black iron kettle. What did Bloom do at the range? He removed the saucepan to the left hob, rose and carried the iron kettle to the sink in order to tap the current by turning the faucet to let it flow. Did it flow? Yes. From Roundwood Reservoir in County Wicklow, of a cubic capacity of 2,400 million gallons, percolating through a subterranean aqueduct of filter mains of single and double pipage, constructed at an initial plant cost of £5 per linear yard by way of the Dargle, Rathdown, Glen of the Downs and Callow Hill, to the 26-acre reservoir at Stillorgan, a distance of 22 statute miles, and thence through a system of relieving tanks, by a gradient of 250 feet to the city boundary at Eustace Bridge, Upper Leeson Street, though from prolonged summer drought and daily supply of 12.5 million gallons, the water had fallen below the sill of the overflow weir, for which reason the Borough Surveyor and Waterworks Engineer, Mr. Spencer Harty, CE, on the instructions of the Waterworks Committee, had prohibited the use of municipal water for purposes other than those of consumption, envisaging the possibility of recourse being had to the impotable water of the Grand and Royal Canals, as in 1893, particularly as the South Dublin Guardians, notwithstanding their ration of 15 gallons per day per pauper, supplied through a 6-inch meter, had been convicted of a wastage of 20,000 gallons per night by a reading of their meter on the affirmation of the law agent of the corporation, Mr. Ignatius Rice, solicitor, thereby acting to the detriment of another section of the public, self-supporting taxpayers, solvent, sound. What in water did Bloom, water lover, drawer of water, water carrier, returning to the range, admire. Its universality, its democratic equality and constancy to its nature in seeking its own level, its vastness in the ocean of Mercator's projection, its unplumbed profundity in the sun-dammed trench of the Pacific exceeding 8,000 fathoms, the restlessness of its waves and surface particles visiting in turn all points of its seaboard, the independence of its units, the variability of states of sea, its hydrostatic quiescence in calm, its hydrokinetic turgidity in neap and spring tides, its subsidence after devastation, its sterility in the circumpolar ice caps, Arctic and Antarctic, its climatic and commercial significance, its preponderance of 3-to-1 over the dry land of the globe, its indisputable hegemony, extending in square leagues over all the region below the sub-equatorial Tropic of Capricorn, the multisecular stability of its primeval basin, its luteofulvous bed, its capacity to dissolve and hold in solution all soluble substances, including millions of tons of the most precious metals, its slow erosions of peninsulas and islands, its persistent formation of homothetic islands, peninsulas and downward tending promontories, its alluvial deposits, its weight and volume and density, its imperturbability in lagoons and highland tarns, its gradation of colours in the torrid and temperate and frigid zones, its vehicular ramifications in continental lake-contained streams and confluent ocean-flowing rivers with their tributaries and transoceanic currents, Gulf Stream, north and south equatorial courses, its violence in seaquakes, waterspouts, artesian wells, eruptions, torrents, eddies, freshets, spates, groundswells, watersheds, water partings, geysers, cataracts, whirlpools, maelstroms, inundations, deluges, cloudbursts. Its vast circumterrestrial, abhorizontal curve, its secrecy in springs and latent humidity, revealed by rhabdomantic or hygrometric instruments and exemplified by the well, by the hole in the wall at Ashtown Gate, saturation of air, distillation of dew, the simplicity of its composition, 2 constituent parts of hydrogen with 1 constituent part of oxygen, its healing virtues, its buoyancy in the waters of the Dead Sea, its persevering penetrativeness in runnels, gullies, inadequate dams, leaks on shipboards, its properties for cleansing, quenching thirst and fire, nourishing vegetation, its infallibility as paradigm and paragon, its metamorphoses as vapour, mist, cloud, rain, sleet, snow, hail, its strength in rigid hydrants, its variety of forms in locks and bays and gulfs and bights and guts and lagoons and atolls and archipelagos and sounds and fjords and minches and tidal estuaries and arms of the sea. Its solidity in glaciers, icebergs, ice flows. Its docility in working hydraulic mill wheels, turbines, dynamos, electric power stations, bleach works, tanneries, scutch mills. Its utility in canals, rivers if navigable, floating and graving docks, its potentiality derivable from harnessed tides or watercourses falling from level to level, its submarine fauna and flora, anacoustic, photophobe, numerically, if not literally, the inhabitants of the globe, its ubiquity as constituting 90% of the human body, the noxiousness of its effluvia in lacustrine marshes, pestilential fens, faded flower water, stagnant pools in the waning moon.
And I'm going to begin the fun with Finnegan from the very start. River run past Eve and Adams, from swerve of shore to bend of bay, brings us by a commodious vicus of recirculation back to Hoath Castle and environs. Sir Tristram of the Yeoler de Amores, for the short sea, Had Passencore re-arrived from North Armorica on this side the scraggy Isthmus of Europe Minor to will to fight his Peninsulate War, nor had Topsail's rocks by the stream of Coney exaggerated themselves to Lawrence County's gorges, while they went doubling their mumper all the time. Nor a voice from a fire bellowed, Misha, Misha, to tough thwart Patrick, not yet, though then soon after, had a kid scad but ended a bland old Isaac, not yet, though all's fair in Venesey, were sauced as Heather's wrath with 2-1 Nathan and Joe. Wrought a peck of pa's malt had gem or shem brewed by Arclight, and the roary end to the rugged brow was to be seen ringsome on the aqua face. The fall, Baba dal ga gara coming runton con runton war Huna back a scone 2 hook dinnerthurk knock of the once Wall Street old bar is retailed early in bed and later on life down through all Christian minstrelsy. The great fall of the off-wall entailed at such short notice the fish shoot of Finnegan, her solid man, that Humpty Hillhead of himself, promptly sends an unquarrying one well to the west in quest of his tumty-tum toes, and there up Turnpike Point in place is at the knockout in the park where oranges have been laid to rust upon the green since Devlin's first loved Livy. What clashes here of wills, gen was, ostrigods, gagging flashy gods, coax, ooh-la-loo, 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 what-a! Where the Battlearies partisans are still out to Master Malachus with grannies, and the Verdons catapulting the cannibalistics out of the white boys of Hoodyhead. Assagates and boomerang throms, sods brood, beamy fear, send glory and save. Arms appeal with larms, appalling killy, atoll. What chance could liz, what casuals bared and ventilated, what bid me to love's induced by what to get go absolvers, what true feeling for their hair, with what strawing voice of false Jacob. Oh, hear, how Hoff sprawled met the dusk the father of fornicationists, but, oh, my shining stars and body, how hath Fanisband most high heaven the sky side of soft advertisement? But was he shoot? Here was Suez. The oaks of Auld now they lie in peat, yet elms leap where askies lay. Fall if you but will, rise you must, and none so soon either shall the farce for the nunny come to a set-down secular finish. Big Meister Finnegan of the stuttering hand, Freeman's Mower, lived in the broadest way imaginable in his rushlet too far back for messengers before Joshua and Judges had given us numbers, or Helviticus committed Deuteronomy. One yeasty day he sternly struck his tent at a hub for to watch the future of his fates, but ere he swiftly took it out again, by the might of Moses, the very water was evaporated, and all the Guinnesses had met their exodus. So that ought to show you what a Pentateuch and by chap he was. And during mighty odd years, this man of hod, cement, and edifices, in Topersthorpe piled bildung supra bildung on the banks for the livers by the so-and-so. He had a little Fiffy Annie, hugged the little crater, with her hair in hands, tuck up your part in her. Oft-wild, bulbulous mitter ahead, with goodly trowel and gas, and ivory-rolled overalls, which she had particularly fancied, like her own Childerek Eggebel. He would coagulate by multiple keppels the altitude and multitude until he foresaw by neat light of the liquor where Twin was born. His round head staple of other days to rise in undressed masonry upstanding, sure granted. A Walworth of a skyscape of most Eiffel and towerly, originating from next to nothing and escalating the himmels at all. A rock a tippy-top lofty call, with a burning bush above off its bubble top. There was lerons of toolers clittering up and tumbles of buckets clattering down. Of the first was he to bear arms and a name, Wassady Boozalak of Regensburg. His crest of heraldry, invert with antelars, Trublant, Argent, Hegok, Coursevant, Horrid, Hort. His scutcheon fest, with archers strung, Helio of the second. Hooches for husbandman handling his hoe. Ho, 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 Mr. Finn, you're going to be Mr. Finn again. Come day morn, and oh, you're fine. Sundays even, you're vinegar. Ha, ha, ha. Mr. Finn, you're going to be fined again. Didn't I tell you?
Shem as short for Seamus as Jem is jockey for Jacob. A few tough necks are still gettable who pretend that aboriginally he was of respectable stemming. He was of outlets between the lines of Reginar Bluebarb and Hordad Hairwire, and an in-law to Captain Leon and Rev. Mr. Birdwood, the Trupblug, was among the most distant connections. But every honest-to-goodness man in the land of the space of today knows that his back life will not stand being written about in black and white. Putting truth and untruth together, a shot may be made at what this hybrid actually was like to look at. Shem's bodily get-up, it seems, included an adze of a skull, an 8 of lock eye, a huel of a nose, 1 numb arm up a sleeve, 42 hairs off his uncrown, 18 to his mock lip, a trio of barbels from his megagig chin, Salmon's son, a wrong shoulder higher than the right, all ears, an artificial tongue with a natural curl, not a foot to stand on, a handful of thumbs, a blind stomach, a deaf heart, a loose liver, 2 fists of 2 buttocks, 1 Glitston ever poorer for him, a man root of all evil, a salmon's kilt thin skin, eel's blood in his cold toes, a bladder thistled, so much so that young Master Shemmy, on his very first debauch at the very dawn of photo history, seeing himself such and such, when playing with his thistle words in his garden nursery, grief folifoil at Prigg Street, 111, Chivalin, Old Holland. Would we go back there now for sounds, pilings, and scents? Would we now for Annas and Annas? Would we for 48 and a Loretta? For 12 blocks, 1 bob? For 4 testers, 1 groat? Not for a dinar, not for Joe, Dick-titted of all his little Brotham and sweet stirrings, the first riddle of the universe, asking, where is a man not a man?
It's okay. Okay, I'm gonna read from Finnegans Wake. No, come on, let me read. Let me read. It's okay. Okay. Wait till the honeying of the Lune love. Die, Eve, little Eve, die. We see that wonder in your eye. We'll meet again, we'll part once more. The spot I'll seek is the hour you'll find. My chart shines high, where the blue milk's upset. Forgive me quick, I'm going, bye-bye. And you pluck your watch, forget me not, your even load, so save to Journa's end. My sights are swimming thicker on me by the shadows to this place. I so home slowly now by own way, Moy Valley way, Towie I to Rathmine. Can't hear with the waters of, the chittering waters of, flittering bats, field mice, balk, talk, ho! Are you not gone a home? What Tom Malone can't hear with balk of bats all them liffing waters of. Ho, talk, save us, my foods won't move. I feel as old as yonder elm. A tale told of Sean or Shem, all Lydia's daughter's sons. Dark hawks, hear us, night, night, my head halls. I feel as heavy as yonder stone. Tell me of John or Sean, who were Shem and Sean, the living sons or daughters of. Night now, tell me, elm, night, night, tell me tale of stem or stone beside the rivering waters of, hither and thithering waters of night.
After spending the better part of a decade writing the most complete book of a single day ever written, June 16th, 1904, where he takes Stephen Dedalus and Leopold Bloom and Molly Bloom through a day in Dublin, Joyce spent the next 17 years writing his book of the night, Finnegans Wake. And you can't really write about the night using ordinary language, so he had to create a world and language appropriate to the world of night, which is of course about dreams and the unconscious and mythology spilling into life. Anyways, this is the final scene of Finnegans Wake. And it's also the first scene, and you'll see what I mean. Night after night. One time you'd stand forrenst me, fairly laughing in your bark and tan billows of branches for to fan me coolly. And I'd lie quiet as a moss. And one time you'd rush upon me, darkly roaring with a great black shadow and a sheeny stare to pierce me rawly. 3 times in all. I was a principal girl then, a panty mammy's Volking's Corsigoth, the invision of Indland. And by Thoror, you looked it. My lips went livid from the joy of fear, like almost now. How? Only now it's me who's got to give, as Dove herself div in this lin, and can it be now it's Floreval? Alas, I wished I had better glances to peer to you through this baylight's growing. But you're changing, a cool you're changing from me. I can feel. Or is it me? I'm getting mixed, brightening up and tightening down. Yes, you're changing, son, husband, and you're turning. I can feel you for a daughter-wife from the hills again in Lamaya, and she is coming, swimming in my hind moist, divil-taking on me tail, just a whisk, brisk, sly, spry, spink, spang, sprint of a thing. There's some there, saltarella. I pity your old self I was used to. Now a younger's there. Try not to part. Be happy, dear ones. May I be wrong, for she'll be as sweet for you as I was sweet when I came down out of me mother, my great blue bedroom. the air so quiet, scarce a cloud. In peace and silence I could have stayed up there for always, only it's something fails us. First we feel, then we fall. And let her rain now if she likes, gently or strongly as she likes anyways. Let her rain, for my time is come. I done my best when I was let, thinking always, if I go, all goes. 100 cares, a tithe of troubles. And is there one who understands me, one in 1,000 years of the nights? All me life I have been lived among them, but now they are becoming loath to me, and I am loathing their little warm tricks, and loathing their mean, cozy turns, and all the greedy gushes out through their small souls, and all the lazy leaks down over their brash bodies. How small it is all. For all the bold and the bad and the bleary, they are blamed, the sea hags, no, nor for all our wild dances and all their wild din. I can see meself among them, Alanuvia pulchrebelled, and how she was handsome, the wild Amazia, when she would seize to mine other breast. And what, is she weird, the haughty Naluna, that she will snatch from mine ownest hair? For 'tis they are the stormies. Ho, hang, hang, ho, in the clash of our cries, till we spring to be free. Or of Volus, they say, never heed of your name, but I'm loathing them that's here, and all that I loathe, lonely in my loneness, for all their faults I am passing out. Oh, bitter ending, I'll slip away before they're up. They'll never see, nor know, nor miss me. And it's old, and it's old, and it's sad, and it's old, and it's sad, and it's weary. And I go back to you, my cold father, my cold, mad, fiery father, till the near sight of the mere size of him, the moils and moils of it, moan a moaning makes me see silt, salt, sick, and I rush my only into your arms. I see them rising. Save me from those terrible prongs. 2 more, 1, 2 more, men's more. So, avalavel, my leaves have drifted from me, all, but one clings still. I'll bear it on me to remind me of leaf. So soft this morning hours. Yes, carry me along, Tatty, like you'd done through the toy fair. If I'd seen him bearing down on me now under white spread wings, like he'd come from archangels, I sink, I die down over his feet, humbly, dumbly, only to wash up. Yes, tide, there's where. First, we pass through the grass, behush the bush, to wish, a gull, gulls, far calls, coming far, and hear us then. Finnegan, take, be softly, me memor me, till thousands see. Lips, the keys to, given away, alone, a last, a loved, along the river run, past Eve and Adam, and bend of bay and swerve of shore, brings us by a commodious vicus of recirculation back
to Hoth Castle and environs. Sir Tristram of the Elder de Amores, for the short sea, had
That's all, folks.